While we all can agree that music is a vital and important part of how society and humans operate, it can also be used to tell intricate stories and hold up as standalone and complementary pieces. There have been great examples of music and storytelling in the past years, with the self-reflecting and self-improvement work done by Kendrick Lamar in his projects such as Good Kid, Mad City, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and Pulitzer Prize-winning Damn. Then there are also examples of not so great storytelling in whatever projects Taylor Swift has made. That's a joke for all your Swifties in the chat. Music can be compelling enough to tell its own stories, and that is exactly what the music of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance does. Now, music has been in gaming for a long time, with one of the earliest and most recognizable bits of music in games being in 1978 with the game Space Invaders. While some games previously had sounds to them, the game's 4-beat loop that progressively sped up at the higher levels is recognized as one of the first games to feature music. There is a vast amount of sounds from games that are also highly recognizable, with audio motifs being in a large number of games. They have become both iconic and important to genres in games. From Ghostbusters, they have the 3-note piano
Listen.
keys and the famous Darth Vader Imperial March from the movies. There are also multiple motifs in the Legend of Zelda games, such as the chest opening sounds and Zelda's Lullaby. In Metal Gear Solid, they have their own iconic sounds. The famous Alert sound and Solid Snake's Dead Scream are also widely famous and recognizable to the franchise. Some are also included in Revengeance, although their motifs are not the reason for this video. The story of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is a ridiculous and outrageous one, filled with confusing narratives and can be associated with an almost political view from foreign views, with the evil Jeff Bezos farming children's brains for his brain rot simulations, that is the boss known as Sundowner, to the badass Latino samurai that Japan wants me, yes, me specifically, to become in the form of Jetstream Sam, to the most American and normal politician by modern day standards, Senator Armstrong.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
But while the game just explores the broad concepts that are provided during the dialogue and cutscenes of the game, it can almost be dismissed as a bland and empty story. The fights and early 2013 graphics really make it an old gem, and it is basically a hack and slash, hell yeah simulator. But the story that is given to the player doesn't really give much backstory about the villains you come across and defeat. In Metal Gear Rising, you play as a cyborg ninja Raiden, who fails to protect the president of a country and is nearly killed by mercenary Jetstream Sam, who is a hired gun by Desperado, a private military company led by an unknown entity who is revealed later in the story. Throughout the course of the main game, you go around and defeat members of the Winds of Destruction, the generals of the PMC Desperado, starting with Mistral, then Monsoon, and then proceeding to Sundowner. Near the climax of the game, you re-encounter Jetstream Sam, where you have a showdown in the middle of a desert, crossing swords and no other gimmicks. Then you proceed to Senator Armstrong and learn about the true plans of the MC, and that's where you have to suplex a giant crab and defeat the hunking tank of a man. While there are countless enemies that you dissect and send home to their families as a charcuterie board, some of the most memorable enemies are the bosses that are fought throughout the game. While the mechanics of the fights and the explosions are all one of the memorable pieces, there are also some other things aside from the insane voice clips and interesting fighting styles each boss uses that are also memorable. The music being played throughout the fights not only perfectly encapsulates the feeling of each fight, but they also have deeper meanings that relate to each of their respective boss fights they play out. The creator of the soundtrack, Jamie Christopherson, must have been fed crack or have been transported to another plane of existence to create these songs that are featured in the game. Starting in the first few minutes of the game, the first mini boss you get used to get the controls of the game has one of the more recognizable songs, Rules of Nature. While you throw that mech that has freshly come out of the water into the air before slicing one of its limbs off, this song rips in the background almost as hard as the mech is getting ripped apart. While this is one of my personal favorite songs from the game, I think it also perfectly encapsulates what one of the most important aspects of the game contains, which is a story in the music itself. In other games, music is just used to elevate the experience that the player is having, and primarily experiencing through the visual and narrative elements that are being displayed, that being the graphics and the story. In traditional games, the music achieves this goal by being instrumental. Whether it's empowering rock and roll or soothing jazz, music has a way of changing the entire tone of the scene you are in. However, Metal Gear has used the series to its advantage, while also allowing for the player to feel like it's empowered cyborg ninja they are throughout the game. In most games, we learn the antagonist's motives and backstory through either cutscenes or spending time with the character. In Metal Gear Solid, most of the games use the cinematics and spending time with the antagonists so that the player can learn more about the character and be able to sympathize and understand where they are coming from. In Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, though, we don't spend as much time as with some of the antagonists to be able to learn about their motives as well as we, the player, are slicing through them. One of the best examples of learning the personality of the antagonist throughout the music is Blade Wolf, a boss early in the game which needs to be placed here so that the player can understand the concept of the pair mechanic. After defeating them, they tag along some of the missions throughout the game, and we get some more superficial information about the character. This will make the character pretty bland and one-dimensional as it is, unless it's used by other methods such as the cutscenes or information to get more data about the character's backstory. However, the game shows how deep the personality of Cybernetic Wolf can go.
There's no choice but take orders to attack. Locked up in chains, I get fed, but the hunger still remains.
This tells us Blade Wolf is conscious, as well as conscious a robot can be. It is self-aware, and it feels like it has no choice but to do the orders of those who own it.
Not content to live this way, being led by the blind. Got to plan my dispersal, time to leave them all behind.
Blade Wolf is actively trying to leave this lifestyle behind, but he can't due to reasons not explained in the main game. In the Blade Wolf DLC, we're able to play as Blade Wolf and able to learn more about his character and some of his motives. This is where we find out he follows orders so that his data and memories do not get wiped out by Desperado. He does it. By the end of the DLC, he manages to get away until he gets recaptured, and shortly after encounters the player in the main game, which leads to Blade Wolf's ultimate defeat as he is then repurposed and saved by the player. The music adds the intense nature of the battle perfectly, while also being able to tell the story about Blade Wolf's character, which, given the difficulty I had while fighting those boss, flew over my head the first couple of times when I was playing. There is one more character who also has a DLC, and in my opinion is one of the more impactful enemies in the game. You already know it, it's Jetstream Sam. Not one of the official members of Desperado, Sam acts more like a mercenary than someone loyal to the overarching cause that the group has had throughout the game. In the DLC, we learn more about Sam and some of the things that will occur before the time of the base game, but before we get into that, I want to talk about Sam for a little while. Jetstream Sam is what I would consider to be the perfect antagonist to Raiden. He's overconfident, has a shit-eating grin, and does everything with a swagger that makes it seem almost look like he's invincible. After being introduced to him, he ends up wiping the floor with Raiden, making him lose an eye and an arm in their first duel, which ends up being interrupted before Raiden is killed. During this first encounter with Sam, I think it's important to note that his theme plays, but no vocals come through. Sam comes back further throughout the story, giving Raiden internal conflicts by using his blade for justice, and showing that the reality that he is a killer when Raiden is going through Denver, dividing the police force manually. Ultimately, Sam ends up waiting for Raiden to ride through the desert on the way to a military base to go stop the big bad of the story, Armstrong. Some dialogue gets passed through about ideas of how unclear motives are until they ultimately cross swords for the last time, and Sam's theme plays once more, this time with lyrics that probably give us the deepest look into his character that we've seen throughout the whole game. This part of the song captures how Sam views the world. After playing the DLC, these lyrics gain more meaning. However, during this specific encounter, they tell us that Sam is broken, with his fragmented memories, and that he doesn't even know his name. He has no goal and no motivation, and it seems that the only thing he really knows how to do is fight. This part of the song to me makes it seem as Sam doesn't want to fight, but this internal conflict of his is only satisfied or even put to rest briefly when it gets to go all out in battle. I think this is a good time to point out one of Sam's signature traits, his blade. In the game, his sword is called Murasama, and after digging through the internet, there are a few iterations of how it is perceived, being referred to as The Cruel Brazilian Wind. However, the name actually is a mistranslation of the famous Japanese swordsmith Muramasa. This swordsmith was famous for making his blades very sharp and was linked to being almost as bloodthirsty. Linking this back to the lyrics, the bloodshed left by his blade fits the name even with Sam's violent nature. The man in the mirror makes it seem like Sam is not himself and he is just watching through somebody else's eyes as if they want to fight, but Sam isn't willing to step in and take back control. I believe this part of the song captures the moment the player is in, highlighting the importance of this fight. The only one left would be the winner of this fight, and the Dragon's Back would be the way to reach Armstrong to be able to confront him. The only thing Sam knows in this case is just bloodshed, and that the winner is the only one who will get to go on ahead. Sam truly lost his identity before he sided with Desperado, and the insanity was a reference to the plan set forth by the PMC to make war a business. I think the mountain range in this part is his confrontation with Raiden. To be able to see this truth of his is to find out why he fights in the first place. Sam loses after winning and seeming almost impossible to defeat early in the story because his own self-doubt and actions cost him his life. He fought for reasons he did not know, and for ideals he wasn't sure he was fully committed to. And with just a song, it gives the player insight into how the character thinks and in look into their internal conflict. Jetstream Sam was very similar to Raiden at the start of his journey. In the DLC, Sam fought for justice, trying to use his ideals to fight for good. After being defeated by Armstrong, Sam felt as if his ideas were shattered and realized that he was ultimately not doing anything in the long run. Although it could be argued that Armstrong's plan of being able to control the world through war and military might is wrong, Sam realized and started to think that Armstrong was right, even if it went against his eternal justice. Afterwards, he became someone just looking for fights, as if it was the only way that he seemed to be able to calm down his doubts and thoughts about living his ideals and doing morally wrong stuff. The music of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is not only good at capturing the energy of the gameplay, but it is also used as a way to deliver more insight about the character the music follows. Mistral's song about being a killer and how she found a place where she belongs, Monsoon's theme reflecting his nihilistic and hopeless personality. Sundowner's Red Sun reflects the Japanese Red Sun and their representation of drastic change in the world with the war business he is trying to create. And finally, Senator Armstrong's theme, which shows how his and Raiden's ideologies are similarly in the end result, but drastically different in the means to get there. At the end of the day, these are my interpretations on how these songs help give these bosses we don't spend much time with a whole backstory. Music can be used as a tool to enhance the experience of the player, but it can also very much have more weight behind it than what first hooks the ear. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this is a bit different from my other content on the channel, but I need a good grade on this final. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye.